At first, he went completely unnoticed by me. Noah was merely another name that my husband, Richard, casually mentioned during our dinner conversation. He's a genius, Richard remarked. A truly exceptional student among the many I've encountered. I smiled and nodded with a practiced grace, reminiscent of a partner listening attentively as her spouse rambles on about the intricacies of his job. One evening, Richard extended an invitation to a select group of his students for an intimate gathering. Noah stood present. He exhibited a courteous demeanor, gentle in tone, a touch reserved. Yet those eyes, they regarded me differently than the rest. Not with courteous detachment, not with a passing interest. They remained. Perhaps it stretches on a bit too much. As I filled the glasses with wine for the guests, I felt his eyes on me. Not in a striking, overt manner, yet in a subtle manner that seemed intentional. It disturbed my peace. Yet, it stirred within me an emotion I hadn't experienced in quite some time. Observed. Later that evening, once the last guest had departed, I inquired of Richard regarding him. "He's young," Richard remarked with a nonchalant air. "Concentrated. A promising future lies ahead." And that was all there was to it. The conclusion of the dialogue. Yet for me it was far from the conclusion. As I shut my eyes that night, Noah's gaze returned to me once more. The manner in which they remained. Their attention lingered on the facets of my being that Richard had long since overlooked. Yet, I found myself pondering the reason it lingered in my thoughts. Yet it did. The afternoon unfolded in serene silence. Richard arrived on campus ahead of schedule for a faculty meeting. As I stood in the kitchen, the sound of a knock echoed through the air. As I swung the door wide, there he stood. Noah. In his grasp he clutched a folder. "Professor asked me to drop these off," he said, his voice steady, yet there lingered an undercurrent of something more. I moved aside, granting him entry. He surveyed the surroundings of the house, maintaining a courteous demeanor yet harboring a sense of intrigue. I guided him into Richard's study and placed the folder on the desk. Yet, rather than departing immediately, he hesitated. "Your home is truly lovely," he remarked gently. A subtle smile graced my lips. "I appreciate it." After that, silence lingered. Our gazes intertwined. Not in a relaxed manner. Yet it carried a sense of purpose. "Do you ever feel a sense of solitude in this place?" he inquired. I was taken aback by the question. It was far from what I had anticipated. I parted my lips to deliver the courteous response. "No, certainly not." Yet, the truth emerged unexpectedly. "At times," I confessed. We lingered in silence for a moment, the atmosphere around us oddly tranquil. He offered a subtle smile. "I understand that." He lingered for only a brief moment. He bid farewell and stepped through the door, allowing the house to fall silent once more. Yet once he departed, a sensation of change washed over me, something I was unable to identify. For the very first time a question had been posed. For the first time in years I found myself responding with unvarnished truth. The encounter was merely the beginning, not a conclusion. Noah began to visit with increasing frequency. Initially there existed justifications. Submitting documents. He was returning the books that Richard had lent him. Assisting in the coordination of an initiative for the department. However, as time passed I came to understand. The reasons held no significance. He was on his way to visit me. It was understated. He always maintained his boundaries. Not at this moment. Yet, the gaze he cast upon me, calm, deliberate, seemed to unveil a part of myself I had long since overlooked. One afternoon, he lingered a bit beyond necessity. We lingered at the kitchen table, coffee steaming softly between us. We delved into subjects I hadn't shared with another soul in ages. Melody. Creativity. The destinations that once filled my dreams with wanderlust. Richard no longer inquired about those matters. Yet Noah paid attention. Truly attentive. There was a moment when I found myself laughing, truly laughing, at something he had said. And I noticed him observing me. That is not how a student ought to regard his professor's wife. Yet, the gaze of a man directed towards a woman he yearns to comprehend speaks volumes. The stillness that followed that laughter was palpable. Yet, neither of us made a single move. As he rose to depart, He lingered momentarily at the threshold. "You rarely wear a smile," he remarked gently. "Yet when it happens, it's truly magnificent." And then he departed. I lingered in that stillness, the house enveloped in silence once more, my heart racing beyond its usual rhythm. For I was aware beneath the surface, if he were to return, I wouldn't discourage him from doing so. The afternoon was marked by a steady rain. Noah visited once more, delivering the papers that Richard had requested. Yet Richard was absent from the house. Only we remained. I brewed a cup of tea. We lingered in the living room, the gentle patter of rain weaving through the quiet spaces of our conversation. Our conversation delved into his academic pursuits, concerning his aspirations following the completion of his studies, the sensation of being adrift, uncertain of where your true home lies. And in the midst of that dialogue, a transformation occurred. He ceased to share details about his own life. He began to inquire about me. "Have you ever sensed that you sacrifice pieces of your own identity for another?" he inquired. The question struck with an unexpected weight. I felt compelled to decline. I aimed to maintain a sense of levity. Yet again the truth emerged unbidden. "Indeed, I do." A lengthy silence hung in the air. He extended his hand. His hand grazed mine on the couch. Merely a scratch. Yet it remained still. I didn't either. His fingers glided over mine, slow and intentional, as if seeking permission without uttering a single word. I held my ground. I simply allowed it to unfold. As I finally raised my gaze, I found his eyes fixed upon me, serene, unwavering, yet brimming with an unspoken intensity that left me hesitant to define. Silence enveloped the moment. Silence envelopes the space. At last I softly murmured, "It's time for you to leave." Yet my voice lacked the conviction I intended. He was aware of it. As he rose to his feet, he lingered, holding onto my hand for just a moment longer. He lingered with it for just one more second. In that fleeting moment, an emotion surged within me, one I hadn't experienced in ages. Seeking, genuinely desired. The hour was late. It's past the point for him to remain present. Richard had phoned to inform me that he would be staying late at the university. Noah arrived once more, armed with yet another excuse. This time it was the return of a book and an inquiry about a paper Richard had alluded to. Yet, we both understood that it had transcended that point. The living room was our gathering place. The gentle illumination of the lamp that stands between us. The silence weighed more than it ought to have. An unsettling tension gripped me. A sensation coursed through my hands, my breath, and the way I found it difficult to meet his gaze for more than a fleeting moment. In the midst of a serene pause, he inclined himself ever so slightly closer. "Keep your distance." Moderately subtle. Just enough for me to sense his presence, warm and enveloping. "I shouldn't desire this," he murmured. And just as I was about to respond, before any thoughts could form, he pressed his lips against mine. Possessed a gentle quality. Soft. It resembles a question almost. Yet as I remained still, the kiss grew more intense. His hand moved to the side of my face, radiating warmth and steadiness, gently tilting my chin toward him. My fingers clutched the edge of the couch, as if I required something to anchor me while the world revolved softly around us. It unfolded at a measured pace. It was not awkward. It unfolded at a languid pace, cautious, yet brimming with all that we had kept inside. As he finally drew back, our faces lingered in proximity. His breath was palpable, a gentle whisper against the air. My heart raced with such intensity that it bordered on pain. "Please just say the word," he whispered. Yet I refrained. I was unable to. I merely cast my gaze upon him. In that stillness he understood my response. As he departed that evening, he cast no glance over his shoulder. Yet I lingered at the threshold for what felt like an eternity, my lips alive with sensation, my body humming with an unfamiliar energy that had long eluded me. And I understood. We had just traversed a threshold that was irrevocably behind us. I convinced myself it was an error in judgment, that it would never occur once more. It was merely a fleeting lapse. A kiss I could feign held no significance. Yet the reality, the thought lingered in my mind, refusing to fade away. He occupied my thoughts incessantly. The sensation of his hand against my face. His lips brushed against mine, deliberate and unhurried. I experienced a resurgence of life within me, even if it was misguided. After a span of 2 days he returned. This time he arrived empty-handed, devoid of papers or books. He didn't even feign that it was for Richard. As I swung the door open, his gaze met mine, a silent exchange hanging in the air. Silence speaks volumes. And I moved aside. Our conversation was sparse. We no longer feigned that it was solely about the company. As the door clicked closed, he stepped closer, his hand settling on my waist as if he was certain I would let him. This kiss held a new essence, unlike any before. It was resolute. It was more profound, more ravenous. We scarcely reached the couch. His fingers glided over my arms and back, igniting sensations in areas that had long been dormant. I promised myself it would be a singular occurrence, only once to experience the sensation of being caressed in that way again. To remind myself that I was still a woman, not merely a wife, not just a shadow of someone else. Yet, when it concluded, a sense of relief eluded me. A sense of longing washed over me, more resilient than ever. He lingered for a moment longer, enveloping me in silence, his fingers gently weaving through my hair. As he departed, no farewell escaped his lips. He simply gazed at me, as if he was fully aware that I wouldn't dare to ask him not to return. Yet I refrained. I was reluctant to see him cease his actions. Following that night, everything transformed. Noah was beyond the need for excuses. He failed to bring the necessary documents. He failed to bring up Richard. He has just arrived. And I always welcomed him inside. It evolved into a cadence. Quiet afternoons filled the empty house. Those twilight hours when Richard toiled away at the university. Silent interludes captured in an environment that ought to have embraced comfort. He entered, gently shutting the door behind him, and there was a newfound certainty in his demeanor. The manner in which his lips met mine, as if he had been suppressing it for hours. The manner in which his hands glided across my skin, as if he were in disbelief of my existence. It transcended mere longing. It seemed as though a weightier presence lingered. It was something I couldn't set aside, even in moments when I longed to. One afternoon, once it had come to an end, I found myself resting my head on his chest, attuned to the rhythm of his heartbeat. "I refuse to be confined to this," he murmured softly. I raised my gaze. "Could you clarify what you mean?" He gazed at me, his eyes gentle yet earnest. "I refuse to be merely the secret you keep tucked away. I desire you, each and every one of you." My chest constricted, because I desired him as well. Not merely the moments, more than merely the act of fleeing. That individual. Yet how could I possibly voice that? I chose not to respond. I opted for a kiss instead, as it felt simpler than confronting the reality of my feelings. In that quietude he grasped the truth regardless. As he departed that evening, he never inquired about when our paths would cross once more. There was no necessity for him to do so. We were both aware he would return. It unfolded in an instant. Richard returned home ahead of schedule. His arrival was a surprise. As I had anticipated, he would not be here for at least another hour. Noah and I found ourselves in the kitchen. I perched on the counter, his hands resting on my waist, his lips grazing my neck. I found myself adrift within it, within him. The abrupt sound of a car door slamming outside jolted me back to reality. A chill coursed through my veins. The vehicle belonging to Richard. We stood still, caught in the moment. Noah's eyes widened, a surge of panic coursing through them. "Go," I murmured, my voice trembling. He snatched his jacket and quietly slipped through the back door just as the front door swung open. Richard entered the room, letting his keys fall onto the table with an effortless nonchalance. "Hello," he remarked. "What are you up to?" I managed to conjure a smile, my heart racing so fiercely that it drowned out my own voice. "Just tidying up," I replied, pivoting back to the sink to shield my expression from his gaze. He remained oblivious. Naturally, he did not. He snatched a drink from the fridge, planted a distracted kiss on my cheek, and ascended the stairs to take a shower. As the sound of the water flowed through the air, I finally allowed myself to exhale. I approached the rear entrance and peered outside. Noah had vanished. Yet the recollection of his hands, his lips, still lingering on my skin, refused to dissipate. What could possibly be more disheartening? The near miss of being discovered only fueled my resolve. It intensified my desire for him. The peril, the uncertainty, it ignited a fire within. As the night deepened and I found myself beside Richard in the quiet of our shared bed, I gently closed my eyes. All that filled my vision was Noah. The sensation of narrowly escaping disaster surged through me. Oh, how I longed for it once more. Noah paid another visit today. This time it felt distinct. He held back from kissing me immediately. He refrained from touching me as he typically would. He remained motionless, his calm, steady gaze fixed upon me, but within it, I detected an unfamiliar depth I had never noticed before. Melancholy. We settled onto the couch, the distance between us laden with an unusual weight. I can't continue down this path, he murmured softly. My heart sank. What are you up to? I inquired, despite the fact that I was already aware. He let out a breath, his fingers weaving through his hair. I can no longer be the one you conceal. The man who quietly escapes through the rear exit. The secret you feign indifference towards. I parted my lips to speak, yet he continued unabated. For me, it transcends the physical. It has been some time now. I have feelings for you. The words crashed over me like a relentless tide, because they had transcended mere desire. They were on the brink of making a choice. Noah, I murmured, yet the words eluded me. He leaned in, his voice a gentle yet resolute whisper. Confess that your feelings don't mirror mine. If you can assure me that this is merely a game for you, I will turn and leave at this very moment. Yet, if you truly feel it, I can no longer feign acceptance of merely fragments of you. I remained quiet, for the simple reason that I was unable to deceive. I certainly felt it. The yearning, the pain. He awakened a sense of vitality within me that I hadn't experienced in years. In the stillness, the answer revealed itself to him. He extended his hand toward mine, cradling it softly, as if he feared the consequences of what was to come. I desire something deeper than fleeting instances, he murmured gently. I desire you. I refrained from saying no to him, for the simple reason that, at the core, I desired him as well. It's more than mere touches. It's more than merely the thrill. That individual. And in that instant I confronted the truth I had long evaded. This had evolved beyond a mere affair. It was an action beyond my power to reverse. It no longer felt like a secret liaison. Not on that particular night. Not when Noah arrived after Richard departed for yet another late meeting. This time there was an absence of pretense. There is no justification. Let's skip the pleasantries. As I swung the door open, he entered with a confident stride and enveloped me in his embrace. I acted without a moment's pause. I kissed him as if I had been waiting an eternity for this moment. I embraced him as though the very act of releasing my grip might cause him to vanish into thin air. We arrived at the bedroom, the very one that Richard and I called our own. For the first time, it felt as though the space belonged to someone else entirely. It seemed to belong to us. Noah's touch felt unlike any other. Measured, profound, intentional, unhurried, not taken. It was as if he wished to etch my essence into his memory. As if he had selected me, despite the fact that the world never would. I was selecting him as well. As the final moments faded, he lingered, not in a hurry to depart. He remained. We reclined side by side, my head nestled against his chest, attuned to the soft murmur of the house enveloping us. I wish this moment could last forever, he murmured gently. I chose to remain silent. I too wished for it to continue indefinitely. For the very first time, I ceased the deception I had long imposed upon myself. This transcended mere solitude, or longing, or occupying a void. This was love incarnate, the inappropriate variety, yet genuine. As Noah departed that night, I lingered by the window, observing him stroll down the street, his silhouette gradually dissolving into the shadows. In that moment of clarity, the moment had passed. It is no longer possible to return. It's far too late to feign that I could halt this, for a fragment of my being was already his, and everything would change forever.